Oh. Okay. Are you ready, Heather? Great. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. If you'd please rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our troops in harm's way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Copeland, I just also wanted to, sorry, I forgot to say, we had the passing of a longtime district employee last week. Jean Gary was a clerk at the middle school for a number of years, and she passed away last week.
Oh, let's take a moment then to remember Jean Gary as well. Thank you. Sorry to hear that, and our sympathy to her family.
Yeah.
All right. Prior to our public session, we had an executive session meeting. No votes were taken. May I have a motion, please, to seal executive session minutes?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0. Please let the record reflect that Ms. McDade is unable to join us tonight. Otherwise, all the school committee members are present. We're meeting tonight at the high school because there's a problem with the water at the town council.
They had a sprinkler pipe that burst over the holiday break.
Okay, so a water problem at the town hall. And so if we do have an emergency here and we need to evacuate, there are exit doors here and there, and actually one right out here. And where is our meeting point? New gym?
Yeah, new field
The
house.
new gym, the field house.
Is it warm?
So,
Let's see, on as terms of chair's remarks on January 7th, Mr. Ferber, Mr. Fox, Ms. McDade, and myself were able to attend the Portsmouth Strategic Plan Community Forum. We had what, probably about 30 people there, I think.
yeah.
Got some good feedback on the priorities and some good discussion. So I appreciate all the people who took time out of their day to turn out and give us some feedback on that. The Hathaway bond projects, we've been saying that we will have some public time if anybody is interested in coming and checking out the bathrooms, the new HVAC systems, and the newly installed elevator. So the district building committee is going to meet at Hathaway on January 15th. And then the tour will begin at the close of that meeting, which should be approximately 4:30 p.m.
Quick game.
Yeah, so it'll be a very quick meeting. So I hope you're able to come out and take a look at the new bond projects. I'm excited to get to ride the elevator.
Sure.
Okay. Make sure it works, right?
What if it doesn't?
What?
What if it doesn't and you're
We'll
in
be
it?
stuck. Subcommittee assignments, if you could just click on that link, please, Ms. Rhodes. These are all based on member choices. So we have our standing committees of capital improvement, chaired by Mr. Fox, finance, chaired by Mr. Ferber, the new district health advisory committee, chaired by Ms. Kelly. I chair the negotiations subcommittee and the personnel subcommittee. Ms. McDade chairs the policy subcommittee, and then Dr. Kenworthy and I co-chair the district building committee. So those are our standing subcommittees, bless you. And then the superintendent has one school committee member as advisory appointments on his safety committee and special education local advisory committee, which is myself and Ms. McDade. And if any school committee members are interested in joining up with finance or negotiations, you're more than welcome to volunteer. I think Mr. Ferber has probably spent 8-10 hours this week in finance meetings, and I've spent about 6, and I don't even want to know how many the district has spent, but probably over over 15, but that is well underway. Okay, and then the last thing I have for chair's remarks is the statewide Transportation Study Commission met yesterday, January 13th up at the State House. We heard reports from the Department of Motor Vehicles and RIPTA. It was actually very interesting in terms of what are the various requirements to be school bus drivers and private or pupil transportation vehicle drivers and how they differ from Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. And the role that RIPTA is now trying to play in enhanced student transportation. So I've been passing those presentations around to the school committee members. The next meeting will be February 10th, which I think will be a very lively meeting. They're going to hear probably testimony from the private schools, because right now, Rhode Island is one of the very few states which requires districts to transport private school students. And within their region, right? So for some districts, this is a pretty substantial cost, and RIDE estimates eliminating that requirement would save between $1 and $4.2 million. But obviously, there's also some people who are interested in having that continue. So I think Bishop Henriken, LaSalle, and what's the Bayview are going to come and testify. And then I think there's going to be some school committees that will come and testify as to the costs. So, but it's an issue worth exploring.
What time that hearing is?
That usually starts at 3:45.
Okay.
And it'll be February 10th. It's not on the chair remarks, but we will have the upcoming RIASC training for newly elected members on January 18th, I think it is. And pleased to announce that both Mr. Fox and Mr. Delahanty are able to attend that. I'll attend as well. And other existing members are welcome to attend if anybody wants to. So
It's too late now.
Yeah, is it? Okay.
January 3rd was the deadline.
I'm sure they could fit you in if you wanted to come.
The bacon's enticing.
All right, that ends my chairperson's remarks. And now we'll move to our PHS liaisons tonight. Welcome.
Hi. I have Brenda being here today instead of Lula, but we have a few exciting things. So we just wanted to talk about our club stuff first. So we have a new thing, Photo of the Week, where photography students are able to submit a picture, and they're chosen every week and they're shown up on the big TVs at our school, just like a nice way to spotlight on some talented people. We have a new youth group, Empower Her, which is a girls group at our school. I don't know too much about it, but hopefully we'll learn more about it and we can relay the information off to you guys after. FBLA was second in the state for champion chapter, and we're off to our state leadership conference, which is in March of this year. So all the members are studying up on their events that they're going to be doing there.
I'm sorry, FELA?
FBLA.
Oh, the business.
Yes.
Okay, yep.
And then Project Close Up students are leaving this Thursday to go to the inauguration. They're really excited about it. Everyone I talked to is really ready to go. With sports, the girls swim just opened up and they're off to a great start. The co-op wrestling is back at it, and track divisionals is tomorrow night in Providence. I don't know where, in Providence. And then competitive cheer has their first competition on, I think it's February 1st. So that's also coming up. And then we just want to talk about our blood drive this Thursday. As part of my leadership project, I brought in the lady who is the liaison for all of the public schools around here. So she just talked to us about the juniors and seniors about blood drive. It's important. We don't have very many signups, but we're hoping to get them for Thursday, which we've been trying to encourage that, like we talked about the last time we were here too, but I know I'm donating. I'm donating too. Yeah. Senior exhibition projects were today, so I know a lot of people stayed after today. We're working really hard on it. I saw a lot of people practicing, so I think hopefully they all went really well.
And then we also have midterms coming up. Next Friday they start, and then PLA is going to help the freshmen with that. So when we go in once a week, whatever, talk to them about good ways to study, what the schedule looks like, even though they know, but like more from a student view, and just if they have any questions for like students, just answer them and just like support them.
Great,
That's all we have for you guys.
excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? No?
Thank you.
All right, we really appreciate the time. Thank you. Is there any public comment? Seeing no public comment in person and none online, we will move on to our presentations. And I see that Dr. Viveros and Ms. Little are online, and we're joined here by Danielle. Welcome.
All right, so yeah, whenever Dr. Viveros is ready, we have the official presentation on the 2024 state accountability data based on last spring's assessments. We did release this information prior to the holiday break. Dr. Viveros is just going to run us through some of the details whenever you're ready.
I thought I was ready, and now my Zoom is telling me that it's denying me being able to share my screen. Is that something on your end, Heather?
I did make you a co-host, so let me. I thought I already did that.
Let me see one more time.
Yeah, see, I already did.
Yeah, she's co-host. Are you sharing? She needs to share, so you have.
Yep, I'm pressing share.
to Stop sharing. Are
Am
you
I
not sharing?
sharing?
Oh, you're not sharing?
I'm not sharing.
Okay, good.
Sharon.
Don't share. Advanced share.
Let's see.
Heather, do you have the presentations?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, worst comes to worst, Dr. Viveros Rhodes can
Yep,
share it and
I'm pressing share and it is not coming up.
I can make you the host, Liz,
Just give it back.
and then just, you can throw it back to me.
Go for it.
Says Liz is a host now.
Yep.
Yep,
There you go. So it must be like a setting.
it's got to be my setting. Hold on.
Oh, you can hold.
And I tested all of this. Let's see.
Account has
I
access.
apologize.
So you can go because she doesn't have an account. Yeah, it's not a subscriber account. You know what I mean? It's a free account.
Okay,
If you let me share, I could share it.
yeah, or Heather has it.
There we go. All right.
can you see it?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. All right, good evening, everyone. I apologize for that delay. Tonight, I'm going to be going over our 2024 accountability data results. Right, so I wanted to start by providing some information on the Rhode Island Department of Education's accountability measures. RIDE uses 3 measures to evaluate a school's performance. The first is academic performance. The indicators that support this measure are achievement, growth, English language proficiency, and science. The second measure is student success. The indicators include student and teacher attendance, suspension rates, and the amount of students exceeding expectations on assessment data. The third measure is college and career readiness. Indicators include graduation rates, commissioner's seal, and the post-secondary success of our students. So RIDE rates schools using a 5-star rating system. 5 being the highest rating, supporting strong performances on all indicators measured, and a 1-star representing a school that has been determined to be low performing on one or more of the indicators. Similar to last year, schools can only rate as high as their lowest measure. So if a school received 3 5-star ratings and 1 2-star rating, that school's overall rating would automatically be 2 stars. So here we have the total number of schools in Rhode Island measured using this accountability system and the percentage of schools at each of the ratings. So starting with elementary, 17% of the schools received a rating of 4 or 5 stars, with 53% of schools falling in the 3-star range and 24% of schools receiving 2 or 1 stars. Looking at the middle school, only 12% of middle schools received 4 or 5 stars, 27 receiving 3 stars, and 61% received 2 or 1 stars at the middle level. At the high school, 23% of high schools received a 4 or 5-star rating, 20% receiving 3 stars, and the remaining 55% of high schools received 2 or 1 stars. Now, this slide provides us with an overview of our past 4 years. Portsmouth school accountability data, as measured by RIDE, highlights consistent improvements and some strong performance. In 2019, the district had 3 4-star schools and 1 3-star school. By 2022, post-COVID, this shifted to 2 4-star schools and 2 3-star schools. In 2023, the district achieved significant progress with all 4 schools earning 4-star ratings. And most notably, in 2024, Portsmouth received a new milestone with 3 4-star schools and 1 achieving the prestigious 5-star rating, demonstrating a commitment to excellence and continuous growth. So now the next 4 slides, I'll be providing you with a closer look at each of the schools' ratings. So for school accountability, Rhode Island uses a rules-based system to determine an overall star rating for each of the schools based on the school's performance across the accountability measures that we reviewed earlier. At the elementary level, only 3 of the individual measures contribute to a school star rating: school quality and student success, achievement and growth, and English language proficiency. The English language proficiency measure wasn't accounted for at any of our schools because although this population is certainly growing quickly in Portsmouth, it's still too small of a population to measure. So we'll start by looking at Melville. Melville received all 12 points in school quality and student success, which earned 5 stars, and 15 points in achievement and growth, also earning them 5 stars. 293 schools in Rhode Island are measured using this accountability system. Melville is one of only 20 schools that received 5-star rating.
Hold for applause.
Yeah.
Yay! Congratulations.
And next up, we have Hathaway, who is not far behind. Hathaway received all 14 points in school quality and student success, which earned 5 stars, and 14 points in achievement and growth, which earned them 4 stars. Hathaway was 1 point away from earning 5 stars in achievement and growth.
So close.
So again, schools can only rate as high as their lowest measure. So because of that, Hathaway obtained 1 5-star rating, 1 4-star rating. Overall rating for Hathaway is 4 stars. Also very good.
Also, yeah, very good.
Right, now we have Portsmouth Middle School. PMS received 13 points in school quality and student success, which earned them 5 stars, and 11 points in achievement and growth, which earned them 4 stars. So because PMS obtained 1 5-star rating, 1 4-star rating, overall rating 4 stars.
Yeah, very nice.
And now we have our high school. Portsmouth High School received 5 points in graduation rate, which earned 5 stars, 13 points in school quality and student success, which earned 5 stars, 5 points in diploma plus measures, which earned 5 stars, and 13 points in achievement and growth, which earned them 4 stars. So because PHS obtained 3 5-star ratings and 1 4-star rating, their overall rating is also 4 stars, extremely close to 5 stars. So
Oh, very good job.
So that is my very quick accountability presentation. And I'll open up for any questions.
All right, Mr. Ferber, I see you have a question.
Yes, I don't understand why the lowest score rules, as in the case of the high school, where they become a 4-star school versus a 5-star school, when you've got 3 categories that seem more important than the one that drags us down.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Fred. Unfortunately, that's kind of the metrics that RIDE has put together for us.
Can't we tell RIDE they're wrong?
I would love to.
Why don't you?
Well, I actually think I may have gotten into quite the conversation with them last year regarding this. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we're looking at this as it relates to our data. As you can imagine, there are other districts and schools who maybe ended up with a 2 or a 3-star rating
Right.
because just
It's-
one of those categories. So it's a very tricky system.
It looks like it ought to be at least 4.75 stars or
Yeah,
something
exactly.
like that.
Right.
That's,
But still, in the high school's case especially, I mean, you got 3 categories that are 5 stars and you're dragged down by the one with 4. It doesn't really make any sense.
Right.
That's
it's the rules though.
That's what it is.
I don't like the rules.
All right. Sorry,
Send you up to RIDE.
Ms. Kean?
So out of the academic performance measures, you explained English language proficiency, and we're seeing that achievement and growth category, but is science included in this?
In the achievement and growth. Yep. So ELA, science, and mathematics.
Okay, and then what about student success? What, is that factored into the star rating, or? Like the next column has student success, student absenteeism, teacher absenteeism.
I think it's all in that student.
It's all in that student success indicator.
Top
I can go back to that slide if you would like.
Quality and
Oh,
student
it's like
success.
that first category.
Yeah.
All right, we found it.
So, it would be interesting to like see how much like weighting, I guess, they give. It's the category that, well, it's achievement and growth is what's pulling us down.
Mhm.
So that's just performance. It's not.
That's that proficiency rating that we get.
Proficiency and then the good growth you hear us talk
Yep,
about.
and the growth.
Okay. I see.
Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions, but I really think we have 3 of our principals here and one I know virtually because you guys are at some professional development. But I think this just really reflects very, very well on the exceptionally hard work you guys have been doing and the teachers have been doing and the students have been doing. And, you know, it is cause for celebration. So again, I think from the school committee, round of applause, good job. I'm sure there's a little bit of a push to kind of get those last 2 points or whatever it is. So.
And I definitely concur. Thank you and congratulations to all of our principals. At our next meeting, we will have a separate agenda item to recognize Melville's achievement.
Principal Lori, I think, you know,
He's getting ready.
prepare to make a few remarks on that one. So
He's excited.
good. Well done. Well done. Well, thank you very much for taking time out to do the presentation.
No, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Where are they, in Miami?
Can you give the host back to Heather, Ms. Rhodes, please?
In Miami?
Okay, moving on to the superintendent's update, Dr. Kenworthy.
Thank
Let's
you.
make sure Ms. Rhodes has the host. Are you able to do the superintendent's update slides there?
Not yet. Oh, I can reclaim
Do
it.
you want me to start and then?
I just
Up with-
reclaimed it.
Okay, she reclaimed it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right, sure, I'll start and the slides will catch up. I know you all have the backup. So our last school committee meeting was on December 10th before the holiday break. Since that time, I'll start with personnel updates. I welcomed officially 2 new hires that have started. Sarah Williams as the library media specialist at Melville. That position will be 1 year only for the remainder of the school year. And Allison Kimmel as a general school aide at Hathaway. I did accept 2 resignations since the last meeting. Kathleen Silvera, a general school aide at Hathaway, and Kimberly McKenna, a registered behavior technician at the middle school. And then we had 2 additional winter coaching appointments finalized. Stephanie Najeski as assistant girls basketball coach and Brianna Gendro as assistant gymnastics coach, both at Portsmouth High School.
Great.
Any questions there before I continue? Moving on to district updates, start with school events that each school reported to highlight. Hathaway recently received 2 Feinstein grants, one for its food pantry and one for its kindness tree. Hathaway community continues to live the Feinstein mission by sharing good deeds on the announcements each morning. And at one of the most recent good deeds, some of them that were collected, I went around my neighborhood collecting garbage and I raked the yard of a senior citizen. So all great things there. Hathaway also recently received a Feinstein Golden Ticket. So with that, both the student who's selected and the school receive a cash prize. So the student who was selected donated their $500 prize to the Butts Hill Fort Restoration. So
Nice.
Thank you to them for that. And while the school will be using its funds to purchase additional ADA accessible equipment for its playground. First graders at Hathaway were very excited. We did have the first snowflakes a few weeks ago. So they captured, observed each snowflake, realizing that each one is beautiful, just like them. And also wanted to highlight 3rd grade student Sebastian Costello and his family, who were recently featured in a Dutch magazine, where I believe his parents are from, for their efforts in helping to initiate the construction of a bicycle shed for students, which is getting much use at Hathaway.
Excellent.
So thank you to them for that. Melville, of course, has been celebrating their 5-star recognition and is very proud of the hard work and commitment shown by the entire school community. Melville also received the same Feinstein grants as Hathaway for its food pantry and kindness tree. And students were very excited and had lots of fun before the winter break with a winter spirit day. I just wanted to thank the students and staff at Melville. As the committee is aware, last week they were dealing with some heating issues. And just to clarify that the issue was not related to the newly installed classroom units, but to the ability needed to sustain the water temperature at a certain rate within our own internal system. So now that that has been identified, the facilities department and contractors have come up with a temporary solution and will continue to work on a long-term fix there.
What's the temporary solution?
Well, a bridge version is raise the temperature coming out of the boiler room.
Oh, okay.
And then it's between the temperature and the pumps that help pump the water to the systems.
Okay.
Portsmouth Middle School hosted a district-wide screening of Screenagers, the next chapter, which explores the negative effects of smart devices on adolescents and offers potential solutions. This event supports the district's ongoing work toward a cell phone and personal electronic device policy. Dr. Masterson is also going to be leading a voluntary book study on the anxious generation as the next activity. PMS is also collaborating with Bridge RI and the University of Connecticut on a grant to improve its PBIS, or Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports program. The goal of this collaboration is to create a comprehensive program that includes military-connected families and students, which will be shared with other schools. First assessment took place last week with the Patriot Pride team, and this initiative is scheduled to last 3 years.
Great.
And Portsmouth High School held its first round of student exhibition, I believe, earlier today. Projects featured everything from student community service projects to working with building administration to ensure every PHS student has a trusted adult routinely checking in with them for the second semester. So great stuff there. And also I know the PHS Science Fair happened today. I was able to come up to judge a little bit, so some fantastic projects there. PHS is also in the process of working with faculty, students, and staff to obtain feedback on this year's new Bell schedule and in-school intervention and enrichment opportunities. This information will be reviewed throughout the second semester to determine areas for continued improvement as we begin the second semester. A couple of other things I just wanted to highlight. Our FY or fiscal year 2026 budget development process has begun. Prior to the holiday break, all schools and individual departments submitted their budget requests. Mr. Diarra has put all those together. And over the past few weeks, the leaders of each of these schools or departments has had the opportunity to present their budgets, make the case for their requests. And we will now, as we wrap those up, we will then turn to working with the finance subcommittee to formulate a first draft that the full school committee will see at our next meeting on February 11th. And a reminder that on Monday evening, January 27th, school committee and town council will be meeting jointly for both a legislative priority discussion, but also this is considered the initial town-wide kickoff of the budget process. Survey Works 2025 is just around the corner. So this is the Rhode Island Department of Education's annual survey for students, in this case, students in grades 3 through 12, all staff and all families who have the opportunity to provide feedback on the quality of education and services offered in their schools. The survey window statewide is going to open from late January through March. So each of our schools will be setting their school windows and communicating more specific information out on the administration of those surveys. And in Portsmouth, we value, appreciate, and review all feedback that is given. So I want to thank everyone for taking the opportunity there. Lastly, or almost lastly, January is National School Committee Recognition Month. So I always like to take the opportunity this is set aside to recognize the dedication of school committee or school board members who volunteer a lot of time and their expertise to ensure that schools thrive and students succeed. So on behalf of all members of the PSD community, I want to thank our members for all that they do for the students and the community overall.
No cupcakes?
Let's do it. All right, and now lastly, I hope that everyone in the PSD community had a happy and healthy holiday break and New Year. A reminder, there is no school for students this Friday, January 17th, as it is a staff professional development day. And then Monday, of course, is the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. So all schools in the district office will be closed. So we'll see everybody back here on Tuesday of next week.
We hope.
We hope. Any questions there before I continue? The last thing, one of the things I added this year, instead of doing a update halfway through the year and trying to review everything, I'm just trying to work in a few updates so we can get a little more information out there on the district goals, and specifically the ones that the school committee has asked me to prioritize this year. So we heard from Dr. Viveris earlier on the accountability update, and of course that fits in with our first goal around academic rigor for all students, specifically key action and benchmark number 1. Tonight, we're going to hear 2 more brief updates. They're both going to keep it to about 2 minutes or less, but as you know, I have to work with each of our district or school leaders on these specific goals. So for under goal 1, for key action and benchmark number 3, which is around some changes that we're looking to initiate to our IEP programming, I've asked Mrs. Shea to take the lead on that, working with me. And then under goal 2, specifically key action and benchmark number 4, which is around enhancing our staff wellness, policies, programs, and initiatives. Mrs. Aguirre is taking the lead on that with me. So I'm going to have each of them present briefly. Do we have the order? Any place you want to start there, Heather? All right, looks like you.
First.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I got it, brief.
Yep.
All right, so this work that we've been doing is specifically in response to the changes that the Department of Education made last spring around criteria for eligibility for alternate assessment. So by federal law, we need to keep that at the 1% mark. We were last school year, we were at 1.18. So that's pretty good. Rhode Island has been much higher than that, which is why this criteria was developed. So in response to that, we have really been working on identifying these students who in our district may no longer meet that criteria. So to do that, and we're talking about kind of those students who are falling in that like second percentile to maybe the fourth or fifth percentile versus that first percentile. That's kind of our target audience that we're looking at in this work. So to date, can you just go to the next slide? What we have done is we've really developed some strong data criteria and looking at the assessment tools that we use to gather this information, kind of creating some benchmark scores to really keep us so that we're not over-identifying now in this new category, right? So we've created those criteria. I've met with our special education staff at every building to make sure that we have a list of the kids that we think might fit into this criteria. I have reviewed all of their data. We've talked about it. We've really looked at it. And then again, meeting with, our building administrative teams at the middle school and the high school to say, okay, so we know we have this group of kids. We have approximately, we're still kind of working through some students, but we probably will end up with either 4 or 5 students who no longer meet that criteria. In addition to that, we have some students that we already knew about. They weren't alternately assessed, but we know that their programming really needs to look very different for what they are able to do and where they need that instruction to take place, just to preserve their dignity and allow them, if you're a 7th grader reading at a 2nd grade reading level, to do that in front of your peers. That's a problem that we knew we needed to think through. So we've met with building administrators and we're just kind of really trying to think about what is the right programming for each building. There are nuances between the middle school, the high school, between the students, between the schedules, so really trying to look at each building, what's the most appropriate programming to put in place to support the needs of these students. So that's kind of where we are right now. Our next steps are that we've kind of identified what we think will work. We've built that into our budget requests as far as resources, materials, that kind of thing. And really what we need next is to kind of know where we land from a budget perspective with those resource asks. And then we'll take wherever we land and we'll figure out how we're going to implement the program to be able to meet the needs of these students. So really the next steps are on you. Pass that message.
Any questions for myself?
Yeah,
or Mrs.
I
Shea on
do.
that one?
Yeah. I guess, could you just maybe take a step back and my understanding is alternative assessment is for students who really maybe couldn't thrive by doing the fill in the blank and the block thing, but might be able to show progress in terms of doing it verbally or as opposed to writing. I guess I don't understand why there's a backlash against alternative assessment. I thought that might be a way to help students show what they know.
Well, federal requirements are the main thing, but Mrs. Shea can explain in more detail.
So alternate assessment is really geared to those students with a significant cognitive disability. So it's not about showing what you know in a different way. It's that we actually align their instruction to essential elements instead of Common Core standards. So it is a very small population of students.
So maybe not holding a 7th grader to a 7th grade standard, but sort of saying if your cognitive ability is at a 3rd grader, you should be doing a 3rd grade.
It is really even below a 3rd grader. So
Do we have assessments for students who maybe can't write as well, but intellectually they're 7th graders and they're at a 7th grade level, so that's not alternative assessment.
No, that would be accommodation.
That'd be accommodation. Okay, I misunderstood that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
And all of this, just, so this is, this all emanates one way or another from federal legislation. So we are still in the US operating for anything related to whether it's our state assessments, the accountability system. This 1% rule is all the Every Student Succeeds Act from 2015. So that, think about, was the end of the Obama administration. So even through the first Trump administration, the Biden administration, which is finishing up, they haven't touched, or in Congress, they haven't touched that legislation. So until there's changes to that, that's the system that we're operating in with that's the reason why the star rating from that, everything down to this.
Okay. All right.
Okay, all right. so
Thank you
there-
very much.
Probably at least one more update towards the end of the year on this. All right, so next, Mrs. Aguirre on our staff wellness initiatives.
Okay, so I'm up. All right, so
part of the goal too was to do a review of our current offering. So what you see here is a review of the offers, the current programs that we offer for staff health and wellness in the district. These programs are offered to all staff with the goal of contributing to their overall health, workplace satisfaction and retention, which in turn should improve the student outcomes as well. So through our membership with the Interlocal Trust, we are able to offer the first 3 items listed. So the Health Matters program, that is a program that is offered through the trust. They offer challenges, 3 or 4 challenges a year. The walking challenge is a really big hit. That's usually in April. We have staff that compete, and there are incentive prizes from the trust that are given to us from the trust. So the annual survey that is on here also goes out on January 29th. And it's important to note that that is a trust survey. So that particular survey is designed to specifically solicit feedback around developing what that program is going to look like for the following year. So the actual challenges and the offerings should really reflect what those surveys, the outcomes of those surveys from the previous year. The Coastline EAP program is another program offered through our membership with the trust, and that program offers professional, confidential, short-term assistance with personnel and work-related issues, and also referrals as needed for our staff. We introduced an EAP here in Portsmouth a few years ago. I think it was around when I first came here. That was under a different vendor. So one of the improvements that we've had here in this area is to go with Coastline. They're a local EAP, so they have a local office in Warwick that allows staff to make in-person appointments if they'd like. And the previous vendor did not have that. It also includes all family members that are not just household members. So that's another improvement there. And they offer 6 sessions per issue per year, as opposed to the 3 sessions offered with our previous vendor. So that was one improvement that we were able to make this year. Blue 365, that's part of Blue Cross Blue Shield Rhode Island. So it's an addition to our health plan offering at no additional cost. In fact, when I was sitting here, I just got a push notification from them notifying me of a deal on meal kits. So staff can sign up to have an account with them. They offer discounts on gym memberships, fitness trackers, nutrition plans, all sorts of health and wellness items. And the next one here is a resource from RIDE, but I do include it because we put this information out to our staff. RIDE identified staff and wellness as a focus area, establishing the WELL initiative, which is an acronym for Wellness and Education Leads to Learning. That was something they did a couple of years ago, but part of this initiative they launched was this resource hub that they just put together in August. So it's at the beginning of this school year. Offers a lot of resources for our teachers and support staff. So Wellness Week is also a big hit at the schools in March. They all do their own, I'm sure you all have been to their events. They do those at school-based Wellness Week. So these are the slate of offerings that we have for our health and wellness initiatives here in the district at this time. We're always looking to improve and to add new items as well. Next slide. The biggest thing we're really excited about, though, is for this year is that under Dr. Kenworthy's leadership, this year we're able to devote a full PD day to staff health and wellness by hosting a district-wide health and wellness fair. That's going to be on May 23rd. Dr. Rivera's charity and I have begun this planning stages already in January that you see in this timeline, and we're going to be working through the timeline to make this event happen. We're all really excited about it. And to my knowledge, this is the first event here in Portsmouth, at least in recent memory, of this kind. So I'll be offering more. Yeah. So, and more updates will follow.
Yeah, she's coming back.
Oh, she's coming back. So the happiness person's going to be
Oh,
there.
yes.
She's going to be our keynote.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the
We're gonna have a
keynote-
whole day devoted.
She was
to
really good.
topics.
Yeah, she was great. We had her for the keynote for the opening. She's going to be back doing keynotes and breakout sessions as well. So it should be a fun day. And updates will continue in March and May. But we do have vendor coordination. So far, I'm looking at like the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust. Someone from the Health Matters program will be there. Someone from Coastline, ERSRI. I have Equitable Retirement, so financial wellness. So it's really like a holistic, program around wellness. Chartwells and There's Pam, our happiness person. There as well. Yeah, and
Thank you.
that's
Yeah.
it.
Any questions on that item for myself or Mrs. Aguirre?
No, sounds like a great slate of activities.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
We'll check in at least one more time on all of this before the end of the year.
All right. That concludes your remarks?
That concludes my remarks.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Moving on to the business portion of the meeting. Can I have a motion, please, for the approval of school committee amendments, December 10th executive session and December 10th regular session?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0. Motion for the consent agenda, please.
So moved
Second.
for approval.
Motion for approval, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0. For our business section, we're at the point after the election where we need to both adopt our bylaws and appoint our attorney. So business A is a motion to adopt those bylaws. That's policy BED in the backup, and policy committee can always change those on an ongoing basis. So it's a little pro forma. Can I have a motion, please?
I
for the
move for
adoption?
approval of the school committee bylaws, policy BED.
Second.
I did. one
Any
com-
discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
I should have mentioned this before. In that policy, we're allowing for public comment to 2 minutes. And I just thought 2 minutes. I think the town offers 3 minutes. I'm not positive, but I think it's 3 minutes. 3 minutes just sounds a little better than the 2 minutes. But the other thing is, I think we should notify a prospective public commenter in, for example, the sign-up form that they have 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever it might be, to speak, because I don't think it's widely known by people that when they come here to make a public comment, they're going to be limited to 2 or 3 minutes. And that way, when they sign the form, they may read that, you know, you have 2 or 3 minutes to speak, and that's it. And I know we don't tend to enforce it.
Strictly.
Yes. So anyway, just suggestions, just a couple.
That would be, yeah, picked up by policy again. So maybe that's something that you, since we have 2 policy subcommittee members here, you might take into consideration on that.
Put it on the agenda, yeah.
But we can't change that in this particular
No, no.
discussion. Good feedback. Any other discussion?
It is on the form.
It is on the form?
And
Okay,
It's also on the form that we post.
okay.
Now, it is 2 minutes, so if you wanted, the policy wants to change it to 3, but it is on.
I'm not positive. I think the town's 3 minutes and I know Newport's 3
I think the
minutes.
town, though, only allows you to talk if you've submitted an agenda
Yeah.
item. They've
Yeah.
really changed
They
their,
don't do the general public.
they don't have a general, we have more public comment than they do because we have a general public comment. And then we allow people to talk on agenda items, but they only allow people to submit public comment on an agenda item that they've approved in advance. I think,
It's not a big deal, but I just thought,
We'll review the policy.
I just wanted to prove that I read it.
okay. So approved. Any other comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0. Thank you for your close attention. Okay, the second item on business here is motion to continue the appointment of our current legal counsel. The attorney serves at the pleasure of the school committee at any time. We can change that, but we do need to formally accept the contract, which we revised, was it last December?
Last
I think
year.
it was last year. So this is the current contract. Can I have a motion, please?
I move for the approval of the reappointment of Hanius Carol Lombardo, HCL,
LLC.
LLC. That's hydrogen chloride, right?
Yes.
To.
Honest?
Yes.
To-
No, I'm not a chemist, but I remember some things from high school.
Wait a minute, we got a partial motion on the floor. Don't complete that, please. Keep going.
Oh, there's more? Oh, and to serve as legal counsel at the pleasure of the school committee. Why did I have to say that? part?
All in favor? And I'm sorry, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0. Okay, this is a discussion and action item. Fred, C?
Move for discussion and action on legislative priorities for 2025.
Second for discussion? Second. Great. Okay, if we could pull this up, again, I apologize, folks, that this was late getting into backup. I tried to take, wait a minute, go back up to the top, please, Heather.
Sorry.
To the very top. Yeah, I took everything that we had last meeting and consolidated it, and I tried to show you with the bolded remarks at top, what was new and what was the same, or what was changed. And then for the final version, what we'll do is we'll remove that and the draft part to make it our legislative priorities. So for our newer members, what happens every year is the town council and the school committee have a joint session where hopefully all of our state representatives come. And usually the town goes first and they provide their list of what all they would like to have the legislators do. And then the school committee provides their list. And we usually try to make sure that we've approved ours unanimously, or not unanimously, we've approved ours by the majority, whatever, before it goes in. So some of these items are continuation from last year or previous years. A couple are new requests, and then one or two have been updated. So my suggestion is that we take them one at a time and allow for comments. I should probably download this so I can edit. And then do a quick vote on each item to see whether we support or don't support it. That policy, that's okay with everybody? Looking for consent there. Okay, so the first one is an update from what we had on last year, asking the legislators to have a statewide study commission on the statewide transportation system. So I started off by saying we'd like to thank our legislators for sponsoring and chairing a legislative study commission on the statewide transportation system for students who attend school outside their residence LEA. While the work of the commission is both ongoing and promising, several items have already been identified that could lead to significant cost savings for districts statewide. This is not just savings for Portsmouth, but for kind of the whole state. And I think now I'm just kind of talking, not reading it, but off the record. I think honestly, the one that probably has the best chance of getting changed this year is number one, because there already was a bill put forward in the House and passed by the House to do this, and the Senate didn't do it. So hopefully number one can happen, but that's supporting an increase in the number of individuals who can be transported in a pupil transportation vehicle. That's basically a minivan or a small bus, right? And right now it's 7 plus the driver in Rhode Island, and changing that to 10 plus the driver. That would be the same standard Massachusetts uses, and it's estimated by RIDE this would save districts statewide between $650,000 to $1 million each year. And the reason is you wouldn't have to take a large bus for 2 or 3 kids. They'd be in a van, so the costs are less, right? So that's number one. The second is support reducing the certification requirements of a 10-hour class for individuals currently holding the CDL license, which you need to drive a school bus, to an abbreviated class focusing on specific Rhode Island requirements for school bus drivers. And if you saw in the backup I passed around, one of the big changes is that in Rhode Island, buses have to put their flashers on like at 250 yards before a stop. Whereas in Massachusetts, I think it's only 100 yards. So, but they have all the other stuff. So again, hopefully they'll do something like this, but maybe they won't. And then 3, support implementing a permanent 30 to 90 day temporary waiver process for out-of-state CDL school bus drivers, as was implemented during COVID. And again, from RIDE, estimated savings for all school districts is $800,000 to $1 million a year. And the governor did that during COVID, but then once COVID was done, then went back to saying, no, you have to have all the requirements met. And the idea here is that this will help reduce the shortage of drivers. So, any questions on that first one?
What can we add to the list? I know these are the things that have been discussed so far, but when we were first advocating for the establishment of this commission, since we have, for instance, 2 students and it costs us $80,000 per student, I think in my notes, RIDE reimburses, I think 65% to other districts, whereas they're reimbursing us nothing for our homeless or special ed students like going out of district. So I was
Right,
trying to
well, and maybe I'm looking over here at Mr. Euro. I think that's the reimbursement is for the private school transportation if you use statewide, whereas we don't get reimbursed if you use statewide for,
Anything other than private school.
yeah. So I mean, I would be very comfortable putting in here, eliminate private school transportation. But the commission, what I tried to do was sort of point out where there seems to be the possibility for consensus at the state level. And I'm hoping that RIASC and other school districts will pick up on these 3 at least, whereas the private school transportation and the subsidies, which essentially that's why they're reimbursing. They don't, you know what I mean? That's where that's coming from, is that whole private school thing, I think is going to be a lot more controversial. So, but we could.
we could still include, we discussed it actually at the last meeting. We need to be able to change the location depending on where the student moves. Like
That's ESSA, the ESSA thing, right?
yeah, but doesn't that still apply to this statewide transportation system? I mean, we do have a lot of students that are kind of still on our, I don't know the terminology, but I would think if we're like relying on, we're on the hook for paying for statewide transportation, there needs to be like a way to reevaluate.
I think that's under,
District.
yeah, number 3, which was on last year's too. This is the determination process one.
Yeah, but is there anything specific? I agree it's also on 3, but like, could we, now that we kind of understand the Transportation Study Commission, I think not only is there the private school argument, but we need to be advocating for more coverage. I mean, we'll always have like a handful of students, right? You know, because of Boys Town and whatnot. So why don't we make the case that districts should be compensated just as much as they're compensated for private school students? These are public school students, like going to.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think, well, I mean, I think what you're saying there is that if there's going to be any reimbursement to districts for statewide transportation costs, it should also apply to homeless and special ed. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the whole, I would think that that's the purpose of statewide transportation.
Well, that's really getting to do the reimbursement stuff, right? I mean, question?
I'm just trying to make sure we understand. So reimburse us, the proposal would be reimburse us at the same rate for special education or out of district students we have to send, the same rate that other districts.
That the state already
private-
provides for private schools.
So they- what's that
Right.
percentage?
So that would probably be like $100 and something million. That's gonna be a huge number. I think part of the ESSA piece of it, like if those kids have a placement with a statewide cost related to transportation, that goes into the whole high cost special ed calculation. So that includes that transportation. So some of that we are getting back. Maybe the best way to tackle that one is to say fully fund the high cost special ed fund. they've been adding to it every year a little bit, but it's not even close to fully funded. So that, if they were to do that, kind of like Massachusetts does, there'd be a lot of support coming back to us for these high cost, students.
So, I mean, I totally agree with I think the system's kind of skewed right now in a weird way, because like, even if you're a parent of a private school student, you don't necessarily get free transportation depending on where you live and where your student goes, right? It's only like if you're in a certain spot for a certain private school. So that seems kind of weird for the private school parents. But then it also seems very weird to me to be using public education dollars to subsidize private schools, which if the government, what the state wants to do that, they should do that, but that should be a separate line item and it shouldn't come out of the public schools. I think it was Lincoln was saying.
Try to testify on that.
Yeah,
date.
which is what's coming up at this next meeting. I guess,
But just to clarify, separate from special education, separate from private schools, there could be like a homeless student who does not have we have no reimbursement for.
Correct.
so,
That is what I would like to be.
okay, so how about if we add that this would then be part of number 4, if the state continues to partially reimburse districts for private school tuition or private school transportation, it should also reimburse districts for homeless. Is that what you're saying, transportation?
But why aren't we just saying it? Why do we say if they do it? If you want to put it in, why aren't we simply saying to be reimbursed for
I would
any
just add it.
transportation costs due to a homeless student? So right now,
I would add it and have it be separate from the private school discussion
So
because,
the state should reimburse districts for homeless student transportation.
yeah.
if they're homeless.
At
So for example,
65%.
right now, let's say you have a Portsmouth student who's homeless and that child gets moved to Warwick.
Right.
That parent can decide whether they want to keep their child in Warwick or they want to bring the child back to Portsmouth every day. Right now, the two districts have to share the cost of the transportation of that child. So if you have a child that's homeless out of Portsmouth, moves in with a grandmother in Warwick, that child's still considered homeless, we're sharing the transportation of that child with Warwick. So you might want to say that the
Yeah.
state assumes the cost of transporting a homeless child.
State assumes, or pen's not working. Okay, so number 4 would be state.
Yeah, instead of reimbursement, have
Yeah,
it
just-
assume the cost of it.
State assumes
Responsibility.
the cost of transporting
Mhm.
homeless students to their, Mary Ann, to
Please.
their preferred district. State assumes the cost of transporting homeless students to their,
Preferred, yes.
Back and
Well,
forth to
District
their,
of origin.
Yeah.
their,
If they leave the district to go live somewhere else, it's the district of origin that they're entitled to attend until the homeless situation is resolved.
of origin. Okay, so number 1 is everything that's there plus 4, the state should assume the cost of transporting homeless students to their district of origin. All right, let's take a vote on this one. All in favor on this one? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0. Okay, number 2, this is nothing really changed from last year. This was just, I think, 2 is the same as last year. We're basically said the state funding formula needs to be more equitable. More affluent districts, East Greenwich and Barrington, have received the greatest percentage increases in state aid per pupil over the past 3 years. If any changes are made to the funding formula, we request that the state at least institute a cap for, would this be FY 26 now?
Yeah.
That should be FY 26. Thank you. I wrote this too quickly. FY 26, no more than 2% or other reasonable number on the percentage increase or decrease that could affect districts. Unanticipated cuts or significant increases in state aid make the budgeting process difficult for districts and municipalities to manage and ultimately have an impact on the educational program for students. And for our newer members, this is because while the town has a maintenance of effort requirement where they have to at least fund what they provided the previous year, RIDE can go, I mean, the state can go up and down, right? They might say you get this amount this year and that amount next year, and it can be huge swings based on this formula. So we're trying to kind of minimize those fluctuations with this. Any comments, questions on this one?
I would just clarify the first sentence, that we, Portsmouth, is like in contrast, you know, anyone reading this might think like, oh, we are a lot, you know, another affluent district, but I think we need to reemphasize that there's such a contrast in the state formula for Portsmouth in comparison to these other two. So if we say like, if we keep that sentence,
How would we say Portsmouth receives the second
However,
lowest per
yeah.
pupil
yeah, like.
allocation of state aid? So
Yeah,
open
just
up with that.
Have that first sentence and then add that as your second sentence, so that it's really showing the contrast.
It's the second or third.
You know, we can.
Yeah, we can
get
look
the
it up, but I
exact-
think it might be Block Island and maybe Little Compton, and then also.
Okay,
Yeah.
Portsmouth receives,
Some of the districts without high schools. Well,
I think that should be our opening sentence, though. Portsmouth receives the second or third lowest per pupil allocation of state aid, of aid in the
Okay.
state.
Yeah.
More equitable funding is necessary, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so number two, as written, but adding this first sentence about Portsmouth receiving either second or third lowest in the state, and then the rest. Any other comments, questions, changes?
I understand the thought of capping the decrease, but is there a benefit in capping a potential increase?
So, for example, Barrington, I think it was last year or the year before, got something like $2 to $3 million more aid
There's
for
always a
1 year. It's like,
district that,
So
So
smoothing it
much
out
more.
for everybody.
yeah, it's kind of like, well, what can you do with that? You can't really start a program because you don't know if you're gonna have it next year. But then on the other hand, other districts had, like South Kingston had a huge cut. So there were these just huge swings, and that's hard on especially the districts that get cut. But then why would, why would unless they had, the exception there would be is, let's say they had an influx of 400 students or something, then yeah, maybe they did need, more money that way. But that was the thought behind that. Okay. All in favor of number 2 with the additional sentence? Any opposed? You in favor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Did we-
All right.
Did we really get to part B of this, or we really kind of talked about?
We're on 2A. 2A, we're on 2A.
Okay.
2A is what we just approved. Okay. Now we're on 2B, high cost special education. And that is the same as last year. Cost of educating students continues. This, I need to make sure I'm correct on this. For the most well-managed school budget, for example, 2025-26 out-of-district tuitions are expected to increase over 300,000. I think that came out of the budget meeting, right?
Dollar sign.
Yeah, dollar sign, okay. On top of the existing $1 million budget for out-of-district tuitions. That's correct, Ms. Shea?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Portsmouth typically receives $100,000 from high-cost special ed, correct, Mr. Diro? That was the last number?
That's a little low. It bounces around and I'd have to, can I get back to you on
Yeah.
kind of a more appropriate number?
But we'll get the actual number there, okay? Or maybe we'll say FY '24, we received X, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably around 200 to 300, just because they've been increasing the pot.
Okay.
So I'll give you that number.
Okay. In Massachusetts, districts are responsible for a fixed amount, then costs above that are covered by the state. We asked our state legislators to support an increase in the high-cost special education categorical fund included in the funding formula. And they actually did that last year. They increased I think the governor's budget had it in
Last 2 years, I think it's increased a little bit.
a little bit
It's not
each
even
year.
close to full funding.
Right. Do you have a question on that, Mr. Alham?
That's such a reasonable request.
Yeah, I think it's just because it's so expensive,
Very.
right?
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
it's,
I don't even know what that number would be statewide.
right, but it's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, for all school districts, not just us.
Okay, with the change of a dollar sign and the accurate figure for FY 24. All in favor of B, 2B? Any opposed? Okay, that's going in. All right, 3, I think this is where, this is this ESSA determination process, and this one is identical, yep, from last year. I can read it if you want me to. Questions or changes? Okay, with that,
Still a concern for us, Mrs. Sharon?
Yes.
still a very big concern for us. All right, all in favor of this one? Unanimous. That one's going in. Okay, this is also a continuation of last year, number 4. For Portsmouth, the real issue is unpaid lunch debt, as you see on Mr. Diero's monthly reports. You know, they had free lunch during COVID, and I think people got used to it. Last year, they got rid of the reduced lunch
Well, for this school year.
for this school year. So basically, reduced lunch is now free lunch. And so basically, we would support just free school, you know, including school lunches for anybody who wants it in the state. They're not going to do it because it's too expensive, but
We can update the list too. I'm sure other states have.
Massachusetts and New York are doing it. New York, I think the governor of New York has it in her budget
Yeah.
proposal going forward to do it.
Presently doing it in New York. New York.
Presently doing
has
it?
Free lunch.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
We'll get the accurate description.
Okay,
of how many
so-
states and,
free lunch.
But we're not New York or Massachusetts.
but
It's an
more and
aspirational
more every
goal.
year.
We should be adopted by one of them.
All right, all in favor of this one? Any opposed to this one? Okay. All right, this is a new one. Cell phone use in schools. Ms. Gian, do you want to do it? You want me to do it?
Well, State Rep Julie Casimiro of North Kingston plans to introduce a bill, statewide policy. So we could adjust it to, support that bill or indicate supportive of that effort. She's been, consulting with the National Education Association of Rhode Island, as well as schools with existing policies and other stakeholders to gather input on what the statewide policy should include.
I'm gonna go with what the committee wants, but I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves here because we haven't even adopted our own policy on it. I mean, we said the policy subcommittee, I think now is doing the survey. And I feel like here we're calling for the legislature to say a statewide ban, and we haven't even done it in our district yet. So I just feel like it's trying to do kind of an end run around the district, and I personally would rather have that play out.
So
So,
just think we have out of district students who come or CTE students who come, and there's varying policies, especially just bordering our town, that can be confusing. And just actually New York State is budgeting for like effective statewide policy on cell phones.
You know, in the New York Times that I saw the governor's gonna propose, it didn't elaborate as to how extensive the restriction is, but that she's gonna require a restriction.
I mean, again, I think ultimately I'm probably gonna end up voting in favor of this at some point. I just feel like we're calling for the state to do it and we haven't done it yet. I feel like we should kind of come to terms with what we're doing first.
Well, I think
I mean, I'd support if we want to put in here a study commission or something. But this basically says statewide policy
I mean,
restricting
we
personal
could
devices.
include, Massachusetts had, well, they use their ESSER funding, but we could have like a small budget to pilot, to, you know, yonder patches or folders. It could be like just the expenses associated with enforcement of a policy, because that has been clearly the holdup. You can write a policy, but everyone says don't write a policy unless you have a way to enforce it. So if we want to suggest having, you know, obviously the budget's gonna be tight, but it won't be like a ton of money. But also some districts say they use these types of, like, for instance, Yonder Pouch for like a year, and once the students kind of like learn how to moderate and the benefits also of like having a break, they actually reward the students by removing the Yonder Pouches because they've kind of like established, yeah, and so whether they might have like a lending program from the state or some kind of mechanism
I
to,
mean, I would support if you, I guess my problem with this is that we're basically saying we want them to do a policy restricting it. And I get very nervous whenever we ask the state to intervene in local policy because sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And I think we should be able to determine for ourselves what's good. So, I mean, I think if we were to put in there a study commission, I'd support that,
What
or
about- So last year, like some of the stuff at the end, didn't we say, or didn't you say, please keep us informed of pending legislation, and we had a list of areas, like,
we could put it there. I would, yeah. It's that whole thing that we should consider a policy restricting it, because I just, like, we're not there yet. I mean, we basically restrict them at elementary and middle, but then
We wouldn't need to be there if the state restricts everybody.
all I'm saying is, you know, we haven't done the survey yet, right?
No, I'm not
Let's
disagreeing with
do
you. I'm
the
just saying.
survey and see what, we had parents say, we definitely want it. And we had a parent say, I'm worried about security. I would like my kids to have it, you know, I mean, so I would like to see the survey results before we kind of went in and said, well, we're restricting it, but.
Are the pouches an annual expense or a one-time expense?
one time.
probably some maintenance there. If
Yeah.
they break or you lose them. or whatever.
Would you support putting in there, maybe the state should consider providing funds for districts to pilot, pouches as opposed to restrict a policy or something like that as an alternative? But again, if I'm the outlier, it's
I think it's
5-1 and, I don't want to.
I think it's a representative from Cumberland who's proposing the statewide,
No,
North-
she's
North
from
Kingston.
North.
North Kingston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Casimiro, yes.
I'm kind of on the same wavelength as you. I don't see the benefit in asking the state to do this. We have it in our ability to come up with a policy. So if state one, whether it was more or less restrictive than what we decided locally was best, could tie our hands.
Yeah.
As far as these are legislative priorities, is that a priority when we can still work on what we want for our school district?
That's kind of where I am.
If you have any thoughts on that, I'd definitely open to hear it.
I would like to correct the record. It's 13 states have statewide legislation. And it's just kind of easier to enforce, easier to develop a process if it's consistent. And so I think by making it really clear throughout the state, like I said, all of our adjacent districts are more restrictive than we are, and when students come here, it might be hard for them to adjust if they're used to having their.
I mean, again, that's assuming you want that 100% restriction or whatever they come up with, as opposed to we want to come up with what works for us in our community.
Well, I mean, I had two PhD professors attend the high school science fair, and independently, they both came to me and said, I walked through the school afterwards and I saw 99% of students with their head down looking at their phones the whole time I was there. So if they don't see that at a college campus, we have to prepare the students for college or the workplace.
They don't see that on a college campus?
You do see
Oh,
that at a college campus.
I was gonna say, I've seen it.
Yeah, no, you do see that, but I think I get your point. I guess what we're looking at here is, are we really is there a majority support on the committee right now that says we want the legislator to create a statewide policy restricting personal devices? I mean, if there's majority support for that, we can if there's not majority support for that, then I think a compromise would be keep us informed, consider a pilot program for, funding districts to try stuff.
I'm not opposed to this with that keyword being consider, because we're asking the state to consider a policy, and presumably there'll be a lot of discussion, and whatever might be the result of that discussion would make it easier for us.
Mhm.
Well, they would pass a law.
Yeah,
And that
but it
would
would
be the
make it
policy.
easier for us to impose a policy that is potentially very contentious. And right now, we could impose a policy that some of our people would not be happy with.
But I think that's why we're doing this survey, to figure out what
Right.
people want.
But
as
we're
opposed to
not
having
asking for
state.
anything more than a consideration.
Well, this is basically saying it says a policy, but what the legislature does is regulate and legal, so it would be a law.
Would prefer educators at RIDE able to weigh in on this. I did review 10 out of the 17 districts in our state have handbook or policy language prohibiting using personal devices during certain times of the day. Whereas Portsmouth, Barrington, Charahoe, Exeter, West Greenwich, Lincoln, and North Smithfield are leaving it up to the
All the times.
I personally don't want to look at parent survey compared to what educators feel is best for the classroom. So that's why I feel like a statewide policy where 10 of our 17 districts are already doing that would allow consistency throughout the state.
Well, I think we could talk about this more, or we could take a vote. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Take a vote.
Take a vote? Okay, so let's,
Well, I'm just one person.
I know, well, yeah, I'm just looking at the time. Okay, let's take a vote on whether we want this as a priority, should consider a statewide policy. And if we say yes to this, it stays in. If we say no to this, then we could add it as should keep the committee informed on developments regarding cell phone policy in the second section. All right, all in favor of adding number 5 as a legislative priority? 3, all opposed? 3,
So it doesn't,
Fails.
motion fails because it's tied. So we'll put it at the bottom with keep the committee informed.
Just, second sentence, education departments, and can you write 13 states? I can provide you
Yeah, or since we're just having them keep us informed at the bottom here, we can come up with the language of what we want, because it could just be keep us informed of anything with. So, okay, So we're gonna take 5 away from the priorities and put it down below in the keep us informed. Number 6, which would now become number 5, is high-speed internet for Aquidneck Island. This is something that honestly, the legislature has no control over, but we've really had this on here for a number of years and it
Plus, it's
tends,
supposed to be federal monies from the infrastructure fund.
yeah, and it, but I mean, so you're saying it's not worthwhile to put it in?
No, it's fine to put it in. I'm just saying, how come it hasn't already happened? Because the money is supposedly there for rural communities from the infrastructure fund.
I don't
I
know
think.
the answer to that.
I mean, I think it's a
Just-
substantial amount of money.
We're not rural.
We're not rural.
I think it was for like rural communities who don't have internet, right?
Yeah.
Not upgrading
We're
faster,
not,
faster.
Portsmouth and Middletown are not considered, I know Newport's considered urban, but.
Well, I would think that,
Probably suburban. that's
yeah,
what they're-
suburban
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
right. Okay, all right.
So
I mean,
leave it in?
is it for home access? Is it still an
Yeah.
issue in?
In Rhode Island?
Yeah, well, in Portsmouth, I mean, yeah.
I think,
But right now, it's just Cox
Right,
giving a
so-
special deal.
Well, I mean, yeah,
I think everybody hates Cox.
we all hate the provider, but we do have internet access.
T-Mobile or whatever it
Yeah,
is, but
is that available here, T-Mobile?
yeah.
I think.
It gets
But
mixed,
in some areas it is, I think.
yeah, it gets mixed reviews for the quality of the service.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay, but back to this, keep it in? Shall we just take a vote or take it out? I mean, it's something that the town council has pushed. We've had it in, I think, as long as I can. But
Years.
it doesn't really make a difference, I don't think, but,
Still don't have it.
Yeah, just put it in, leave it there.
well, let's take a vote. All in favor of keeping 6, which is now 5 in? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0. Okay,
Make an edit on the second line,
okay.
internet for Quinnick Island instead of international.
Oh, yeah, not international.
Sorry,
Quinnick Island.
you know, this is my IR background. Anytime I type INTR, it goes international as opposed to anything else. Okay, internet, high speed. It's just my fingers do it automatically. Okay. REF becomes refugee. All right, so now it says, in addition to our top 5 priorities, we would ask you to keep us informed about the following issues. So last year, we just had one sentence there, age-appropriate career development for green and blue economy. We wanted to keep us informed about that. This one, I wanted to make sure I was accurate here, Dr. Kenworthy. All Portsmouth schools have implemented a composting program, right?
Yep.
Okay. So, and then thank you to Ms. Skian for the backup here where it basically said it hasn't created the compost facility or the anaerobic digester. And then we have, well, let's go, do we want to keep age-appropriate career development, green and blue? These basically, they're just going to let us know if something's going on about it. Anybody opposed to that?
Mm-mm.
No. Anybody opposed to the waste removal and composting?
I don't know why the state wouldn't
No.
be encouraging it though.
So I don't know, where is the Green and Healthy Schools Initiative? Is that still going on? That was from last year. I haven't heard anything about it. Have you, Dr. Kenworthy?
I'm trying to remember. Was there more to this one last year?
That was that one sentence.
I think that was Clean Ocean Access
Yeah.
working with Portsmouth, but because they don't exist anymore,
So take C out,
you can take C out.
remove C. Okay, well, let's put cell phones in there. Let's put cell phone use in schools for C, and then the paragraph, and you'll get me, you want 13 states? Is that what you'd like in there? Cell phone, C will be cell phone and 13. Okay. And then these last 3 have come from Ms. Skian this year. Clean School Bus Initiative, reduced state needed effort, tax exempt entities, 280 billion tax credits for use in funding local clean energy projects. State needs a coordinated effort and technical assistance so school districts can access those funds, correct?
Mhm.
And then F, pesticide use on school property. We're pretty cautious
so when
about
I
pesticides,
saw this
aren't
one
we?
earlier, I checked with Mr. Simmons, I mean, he couldn't say 100%, but he does not believe that our contractors use pesticides. But he's actually presenting at our next meeting. We can,
Ask him on that? Okay. But this is really about the General Assembly passing a bill that required them to create an integrated pest management plan for municipalities and a task force, public training. And then Rep. Carson said that that part was unenforced. So I thought we needed an extra sentence here about something, ask our representatives to follow up on the enforcement or something at the end.
Yeah, the enforcement.
Ask, follow up on enforcement. Okay. So is everybody okay with those keep us informed listings?
Yeah.
Do we need a vote? I'm getting consensus? Consensus? Okay. Anything else? Do we want to add anything else or are we good?
We're gonna get this to our state reps before
Yes,
the
I
meeting.
will make the changes. I'll get rid of the draft. I'll get rid of the notes on there
That's
and
on the
we'll
27th, I know.
And we'll get that, Ms. Rose can get that sent out to the town council, state reps, et cetera, et
Where's the
cetera.
town meeting if the chambers are?
Good question.
The auditorium,
The auditorium
yeah.
at the high school?
yeah, it's where they had their meeting last night.
Okay,
We would need to, I
Is it this?
believe the town posts by Thursday, so they like everything by Wednesday
I'll do
of
this
next week.
tomorrow. Well, actually, I have to go to the airport tomorrow, but I'll do this by
Yep.
Thursday. You can bug me if I don't. Okay, since we voted independently on these, I don't think we have to all vote the same thing. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So who on the policy subcommittee wants to take B?
Sure.
Go for it.
No
Have a
changes from the
Motion,
last
please, for
meeting,
B.
replacing an
Uh,
existing policy.
Wait, we haven't moved it
Move
yet.
Sorry.
for discussion action of policy
Just to
GDA.
get out of here, watch the
equal
PC
employment
game.
opportunity, Replacing policy 4111.6 final read, so we will vote on this.
Can I have a second?
Second,
All right. Now say what you're going to say, Dr. Kenworthy.
This is Kelly's fine, sure, but just a reminder, this is no changes from last meeting and it's an update to a current policy. But take it away, Mrs. Kelly.
Any questions? Anything else? Seeing no questions, we do need a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous, 6-0. All right, moving on to reports and expenditures. Mr. Diero.
So you have the November report, the annual report of revenue expenditures and transfers. As we've discussed for several meetings, I'm still concerned about a potential deficit for the year. We have made efforts to cut about $300,000 of that. I'm still a little concerned. We'll continue to watch it and react as we need to. So this is only through November, so there's still quite a bit of time left.
Okay,
And if there's any questions on any specific budget lines, I'm happy to answer them.
I looked and none were over like 100. Well, there's one 104, but not too bad. Any questions on the financial reporting? Seeing none, thank you for that report. Before we adjourn, the district, just a reminder that the district building committee meets tomorrow, January 15th. It'll be a very short meeting, but the main thing will be a public tour for anybody interested at Hathaway of the bond projects, which will commence at about approximately 4:30. District building committee starts at 4, right?
Yeah.
Are you able to make that, Mr. Fox?
I don't think I'm gonna be able to make that.
Okay.
I thought the time was earlier when we discussed it, but I still want to participate.
Right.
Future
It's just this one
Just this
meeting. They
one
wanted
meeting.
to push it a little later so that people could come to see the project.
Right, understood.
Okay. Then on the 27th, there's a joint town council school committee budget kickoff and legislative priorities. They usually arrange for us to sit kind of in one table and they sit at another table and then we sort of listen. The budget stuff though, are you going to be doing a presentation on that?
Usually Mr. Rayner and myself, it's just a high level. This is what we anticipate as the priorities.
Okay, and then the first meeting of the new district health advisory subcommittee will be January 30th. And that is at the high school.
Right now it's
At the
it's scheduled at the district office. Yeah,
Okay, at the district office. Just as a reminder, there's 2 more people on that subcommittee. policy subcommittee starts meeting back up February 3rd.
Then the workshop, then finance. So it's weren't finalized by the time it's agenda.
Oh, right. Oh,
Big afternoon.
yeah, so
February 3rd.
actually, the very important thing is the workshop after that, which will look at the strategic plan. We'll have tests. I'm blanking on
Nicholson Powers.
Nichols Powers presenting kind of the process and sort of an initial draft, I think, for the school committee to get some feedback.
We talked about, we'll create a separate backup folder for that.
Yeah, I think we had some interest in
Yeah.
seeing some of the data for that. So that'll be there. And do you know when that'll be available?
And I'll work with her to get it. What was that, the 3rd? So and we'll try for
30th,
at least
yeah.
the beginning of the week prior.
Okay, so that should be coming up. And then after the subcommittee, after the after the policy subcommittee, it'll be the workshop and then the finance subcommittee. Okay. And then we have our regular school committee meeting February 11th, which hopefully will be back at town hall, right?
Yeah, I mean, the work is progressing. They're just not finished yet.
Okay, good. May I have a motion for adjournment?
So
please?
moved.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous, 6-0. Thank you.